Welcome to the Data Scientist Podcast with Dr. Stylianos Kampakis. Dr. Kampakis is a data scientist, statistician, and blockchain expert with a mission to educate the public about the wonderful capabilities of technologies like AI, data science, and DLTs. These technologies have the potential to transform the world, the economy, and our lives. However, there is too much misinformation around tech, and so most people are just confused about what is true and what is not. Whether you are a CEO, an entrepreneur, or just an enthusiast, the Data Scientist Podcast helps you separate reality from hype.
Hi everyone. On this episode, I'm going to talk about the future of AI in creativity and in the creative industries. So it's December the 1st, 2020, and yesterday we had the opportunity to run a very successful and engaging meetup, and I'm referring to the AI and creativity community. And since we're in lockdown right now in London, we had to do the meetup virtually, and this actually turned out to be a very big success. So apparently one of the benefits of running a meetup online is that you can get a better turnout than you would get in person, because it is just easier, especially when people are in lockdown. And we were also very lucky to have Gauthier from the Obvious Collective with us, who resides in Paris. So we had a very interesting set of speakers, and we all shared like our opinions around the current state of the art in generative AI and where we see the future heading. And I'd like to take the opportunity on this podcast to reflect on some of the things that were discussed and to share my own views. By the way, if any of you are interested in this community, you can just go on the Meetups page and search for AI and creativity, or you can simply drop me an email at thedatascientist.com and I can send you a link. I'm organizing regular events for this community, as well as some other communities like the marketing and data science community and the data science London community. So I think one of the things that came out of yesterday's discussion is that we are witnessing huge progress in this field, and it's not just about the progress on the technical front, because it's clear that every few months we see better and better neural networks, right? On any fronts, not just on generative AI, but also on the social and cultural fronts. So what I mean by this is that it looks like AI is being more accepted now by society and by artists and by companies. So some of the speakers, they mentioned some of the things they're working on, and some of them they have started to work with companies, with big companies that want to use AI, generative AI, for marketing campaigns, for example. And what this demonstrates is that creative AI is probably one of the best ways to engage with companies. And I believe part of the reason is that generative AI is very impressive in a sense, but it's also easy to understand. Not easy to understand in the sense that it's easy to understand the workings of the algorithm, but it is easy to see and for the clients to know what they're getting out of this. And what I mean is that, as some of you might know, my work for the last few years has been a lot around educating decision makers on AI and data science, explaining how data science and AI work. And what I've noticed is that many decision makers are very skeptical about how AI works or whether it can deliver results. And this is partly because of the fact that when you're dealing with algorithms and output of this algorithm is just a number, it's very difficult to convince someone that this is something useful. So if, for example, you're working you want to create a system to forecast, demand for a retailer, then the retailer, even if the people in charge do not really believe that forecasting can be done, then there's not much you can do about it, right? So it's difficult to convince them, because it sounds like very abstract, right? Okay, so you have this model, and this is a complicated model, it can predict this and that, so what's the big deal? I don't believe you. And so that's why part of my work for the last few years has been on explaining the benefits of AI and data science to this type of decision maker. But with generative AI, the results are immediate. So we've seen some really cool outputs over the last couple of years, ranging from the uncanny to the very realistic. And now this has moved on from images to other areas like video and sound. And this is very impressive. And when someone sees this, they're automatically convinced that, yes, this can work. And it looks like we will see wider adoption of these methods, these technologies. And obviously, this adoption might create a clash with some workers in this industry, as in many designers think that AI might steal their jobs. And I don't think that's the case. I think what we'll see is an adaptation of certain fields so that designers might work more with AI and focus on the more interesting or creative things. And this is not just the creative industries. We're seeing similar changes in other industries. I believe the same thing might happen with doctors in medicine, for example. You might have deep learning-based expert systems to help with diagnosis, but this doesn't mean that there's not going to be a doctor there. So in any case, I think that AI and art, the whole area, might also be more accessible, but also acceptable by society. There are already some universities which have started teaching degrees in this field, and I think that's very encouraging, because it's not only going to encourage people in this, like students, to learn more about this fascinating area, which extends beyond art. The skills that you can learn by working in generative AI can be transferred to many different settings. But also, we're going to see some revolution in entertainment and in art pretty soon, probably in the next few years, if not, maybe some will argue that we're already witnessing this. So, for example, we might have new music clips on demand based on our preferences. Maybe in the future we'll even see unique movies being produced on demand. And I don't think this might sound a bit crazy, but I don't think it's an idea that's too far away, right? I mean, one of the main issues with this technology right now is that it still requires lots of computational power. But I think as years go by, we get cheaper and cheaper computational power, and also we are seeing advances in making algorithms more efficient to run. So I think the future of AI and art looks very bright, and I think as soon as when we take into account the fact that on one hand technology is advancing rapidly, on the other hand we're seeing some great advances in the computational power, and it becomes cheaper and cheaper, but also that society and businesses become more receptive to it, then I think that we're probably going to see an exponential adoption trend over the next few years. And obviously this area, I believe it has the indirect effect of encouraging AI adoption in general and familiarizing the public with AI. So it's clear that one of the benefits of AI and art is not only to create cool things, but also to educate the public, to make the public more familiar with the power of AI and what AI can do for society. And I believe that's something very positive for all of us who really believe in the transformational power of artificial intelligence and data. But so this was my, one of the takeaways from the event. Now that I'm reflecting back on it, this is my opinion as to where I believe everything is heading towards to. But I'd be curious to hear about your opinion as well. So feel free to send me a message at thedatascientist.com. I'd be very interested to hear what you think about the space of AI and art and generative AI. And really looking forward to your thoughts. So thank you for being here with me, and I hope to see you again soon. And if you're interested in joining some of the meetups I organize, just make sure to drop me an email or just visit the meetup page, and you can see the AI and creativity meetup, the data science London meetup, and you will also find the data science and marketing meetup. These are the meetups I'm the administrator for, and I'll be very happy to see you in some of the events we're going to run in the future. So thank you for being here with me, and bye.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to visit thedatascientist.com for more content about data science, AI, and blockchain.